Hi everyone, this month we've been reading Creativity, a Short and Cheerful Guide by John Cleese, and it's a very short book, so worth reading because it's got some interesting content and also because it'll only take you an hour and a half to read. So there are 4 main ideas that I take from this that I think are pretty interesting to talk about. The first one is the idea that creativity works when we are using our conscious and subconscious mind. So when John Cleese is talking about this, he refers back to a time when he was in the Cambridge Footlights. Cambridge Footlights is the Cambridge University Amdram Society. John Cleese, one of the founders of Monty Python, who then went on to be a comedy writer for the rest of his life, and he's still doing it at 80 years old. Anyway, so he was saying that one night he got very stuck on a scene that he was writing and really couldn't figure out how to make it funny. Went to bed, let it just lay there and didn't really do anything about it. And then the next day came back and he'd solved it. He'd solved it without thinking about it. And what he says here is that what he's noticed is that creativity is this exchange between consciously pushing the idea forward and then letting it grow subconsciously. And that's certainly something I've experienced as well. And that's why we work with this interaction between play and being open to ideas without focusing on the goal, and then really specifically focusing on moving the goal forward. This is creativity that's not just about ideas, but about getting things done and getting things out there. Another idea that he has in the book is that play is really, really important. So he found some research from many years ago, I think it was in the 1970s, where a psychologist basically looked at different architects, and some of the architects were super creative, buildings that had sort of things that were really innovative and different in them, and some of them were not so innovative. And what made the difference between these two types of architects? And what they found was 2 things. One, that they were more able to play, and 2, that they deferred decision making for a little bit longer. So in terms of this play, he talks about how he incorporated this play into his way of doing things. For me, this is something that we incorporate a lot into our creativity as well. This idea of being able to be free and let the ideas flow and then grow out of that without always being focused on the result. So he talks a lot about that. Then in the thing about deferring decisions, the interesting thing here is that he points out that there's no real value to deciding early. So we often decide early. Say I've got to make a decision on something and I've got to decide on Friday. I might decide to do that today, make the decision yes or no, just so that I can get that off my desk and I don't really want to deal with it anymore. It's not on my list of things to do. Well, what he says is that the more creative people leave that on their desk for longer, because there might be new information that comes in. They might have more time to analyze both consciously and subconsciously what that offer or what that decision really means. So that was the second thing about creativity. The 4th thing that he talks about in the book is a list of how you can become more creative. So even in the very beginning of the book, he makes it really clear that creativity is not just some talent that people get given and either you have it or you don't, but it's more like a muscle that you can develop. So how would you go about developing that muscle? And he gives us a whole load of ideas, but one of the key ideas on this is to understand what you need in order to be creative. What are the conditions that you need to set up in order to make you more creative? And that's about listening to yourself and about understanding yourself a little bit more. And there are lots of different ideas about whether you should start with something that you know and develop from there, whether you should spend time apart, making sure that you're not consciously always trying to move forward with creativity and letting it